1, full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow in Pit Lane's weekly get-together, where we sit around and we chat about all things motor racing. And by God, what a huge weekend it was of motor racing! Big Easter weekend. We had the Formula One. We had the World Endurance Championship happening at Imola. We had local racing. We had all sorts of things. Bathurst 6 Hour was on as well. So we'll talk about as many things as we can get to within the limited time at our disposal. And right now, joining me to share that limited time are our regular crew of individuals and desperations, with one exception. Pete's not with us this week, but joining us is Mark Jones, Craig Doc Latigo, and Richard Outram. G'day, guys.
Hey, how are you, Brett? Hello, viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
Good evening to you all.
Mark.
Yeah, what a big weekend it was. We were saying before we came on then, and as I was saying to Mark before we came on there, I had the added thing that it was also WrestleMania weekend, and I mean that just that takes up sort of 6 hours of the weekend as well. So, but anyway, that was a.
Well, you had a 4-day weekend then.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic, but.
Just as well as double the weekend.
Yeah, so it was pretty good sort of way to do things. Caught up, of course, with the Bathurst 6 Hours.
As Kenny Everett used to say, we had to widen your radio to fit it all in.
Very much so, yes.
Good on Kenny.
The great Kenny Everett.
Jonesy, I love it. That's a great way to kick off the show. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's kick off the.
Who the hell's Kenny Everett?
Yeah, no, I think most of our viewers would probably know who Kenny Everett is.
Yeah, great satirist. Yes, that'll do.
Very talented individual. Many years ahead of his time. Oops, hello. I might have disconnected myself there.
No, you're good. You're good.
No, I've lost my sound, so I'm going to have to
We can hear you, but your microphone works, remember? You just can't hear us.
Yeah, no,
anyway.
I can hear you now, but you're probably going to get me in. You're probably going to get me badly echoing at the moment. I'm sorry, but
no. You sound exactly like the coverage of the Bathurst 6 Hour last weekend, where we could pick up the commentators, relays.
Yes.
Start again.
Yes, goes down to the corner, and takes the second place.
This is Captain Caveman stuff. Oh, jeez.
Anyway, let's talk about Formula One first of all. Last week, you may remember that the British media said that Oscar was, I think the term was, he was gifted his Grand Prix win. This week, according to Autosport, he stole a Grand Prix win. And that, of course, is in reference to the incident on Turn 1 involving Max Verstappen when Max completely outdrove him. Oscar completely outdrove Max, and Max has suddenly realised. I think Max has sort of got that look on his face now that oh my God, I can't bluff this kid. This kid isn't just going to back down like a lot of other kids are. He's not going to take any shit from me. I think he's going to have a lot of respect
Looks too young to get into a pub.
Well, all in America, I suppose. Well, no, you can get in now. I think he's 23 or something, isn't he? But
24.
I'm 24. So he would get into a pub in America now. But
I'm going to go controversial. Richard, I think you should start off this. Off you go.
Well, because I said I didn't think Max should have been penalised 5 seconds.
Well, yes. So Richard, the convention, for those of you who didn't see it, I mean, the situation was Oscar made a fantastic start. Max started from pole position. Oscar made a fantastic start, got alongside on the inside of Max going into Turn 1. They were locked together. Oscar was of the opinion, and the stewards agreed with him, that it was his corner. and Max sort of ran wide in order to stay in front and gain an advantage. And as a result of that, he was penalised. He was penalised 5 seconds from the race in that to spend an extra 5 seconds at his first pit stop. And according to the good people from Autosport magazine, that's the only reason Oscar Piastri won, except for the fact they did begrudgingly say, perhaps we need to reassess things, and perhaps this kid is the real deal.
Got something for you to borrow, Richard.
They obviously forgot about the race before. Where,
I've got some stuff. I've got some things that you need to borrow for a second, Richard. Before you start,
I had my guide dog watching the screen for me. He was doing semaphore.
All right.
Okay. Well, your view is different. You go along. You're taking the Christian Horner Max Verstappen thing, Richard. Your time starts now.
Effectively, the rule is wrong. If an opposing car has its front axle past the rear axle of another car, they should allow at least enough room for the other car to have one wheel on the track. And it's the same as happened in COTA, except this time, then it was reversed. Max forced, I think it was Lando, off the track. And basically, they're not turning into the corner. They're arrowing it so that their car gets off the track. And, of course, it's going to force the other car to go much wider again. The other car can't technically just disappear. It's the rule which is effectively wrong from my point of view.
What should the rule be then?
That sufficient room should be allocated by the car being passed to allow the other car to have at least one wheel on the track. Because if the other car goes a full...
But what if it happens? What happens on the weekend? What's the rule then?
Well, effectively, Piastri would have forced Verstappen off the track because there was no room left for him to remain on the track.
So who should be in front? Should it be readdressed, or it should be stay that way, or what should happen? Because, as you said, the rule should be different. But if they do change the rule, but the same outcome is exactly what just happens again because someone doesn't renege or someone doesn't follow it. What's the outcome? Should it be? Should they swap or should they?
You'd have to say that swap if it could be ruled that they force the other driver off the track.
Well, I think they can. I think they can swap now. I mean, that's not the. But if you have a look at the thing, and even the stuff, the red hot, new evidence that was presented by Christian Horner, from the other camera, which he claims shows that it was clearly Max's corner. It doesn't look like Max's corner to me. You can see Oscar's front wheel, way in front of the mirror of Max's car. And, he's on the inside, so I don't know. And the thing was, he was so alongside, if Oscar had have decided to drop back and slammed his front, he probably would have skidded off and gone straight into the side of Max anyway.
Would have done a Yuki and a Gasly. Yep.
So, I could understand if they... And the problem was, it was... Max didn't even try. The whole thing could have probably been solved if Max had, instead of being... If they'd have turned around and said... it might be an idea to drop back behind Oscar and just, cede that position and then try and get back, just do it, do the right thing, and because he totally cut that corner. By miles. He didn't just stay in front. He got about a good 2 car length advantage because of it.
If he hadn't so obviously cut the next corner to stay in front, then maybe it would have been much less of an issue for him.
I think it came down to, without going on and on and on, Oscar stood his ground and did not give him room deliberately, and Max deliberately knew, and they both knew exactly what each other was doing, and he cut the corner deliberately. So they both knew the rules. They both knew. It all came down to how was the stewards going to proceed it. And if you go by the letter of the law, as Brett said, he had his nose in front, wing in front, tyre in front. He got the better start, whichever way you look at, whichever camera angle, top, bottom, sideways, floor shot. Who cares?
The
They
problem
both
is
knew exactly what they were doing.
The problem is they're not, the Formula One, the driver standards, they've pointed out, are not available publicly. This is the thing. Apparently, they've sort of said that no, this is an internal document between the teams, the drivers, and the FIA,
The
and
briefings.
it's not been sort of let out publicly. Now, the people who sort of have seen it. Some former drivers, people like Karun Shandok and Anthony Davidson and a few others have said no, that's basically the rules. And as far as they were concerned, Oscar, it was Oscar's corner, and Max should have dropped back. And but the problem is until we see that ourselves, I don't know why they're keeping it secret. It doesn't seem to be sort of hindering national security or anything like that. But as we know, there's an awful lot secret in the FIA at the moment, which brings us to the other thing that happened after the race, which was quite interesting, which was Max's reaction in the press conference, which has got a lot of attention, where he's basically said, "Look, I'm not saying anything because I've basically been warned." And apparently there was quite a conversation went on between Mohammed Ben Sulayem and Max at some stage over the weekend, where it was apparently quite heated, where Max was basically read the riot act and said, "Do not criticise me, do not criticise the FIA. And if you do, if you keep doing it, well, number one, you'll get fined. And if you get fined more than 4 times, you will be suspended from the championship."
I'll have to disagree with you, Brett. He actually said it twice. He said it in the pen and he said it in the post interview. So not just once. You just mentioned once. He used the same lines twice, because I saw both interviews and they're both separate to each other. And he explained exactly what you said along the lines of, "I can't say anything. I can't have an opinion on it. I will be sanctioned. I will be whatever it may be, or fined, all that jazz." So he did it twice because they asked him his opinion on the corner and the outcome and the steward's ruling, and he said it in both lots. However, not only that, the press conference, in the pen, Lando was also interviewed and asked which was the faster car out there in your opinion. Was it the Red Bull or was it the McLaren? And Lando said the Red Bull's the faster car. When they got to the post-race interview, they said to Oscar, we were talking to Lando in his interview, and I asked him about which car's faster, the McLaren or the Red Bull, and they were upfront about it to him and said Lando said it's the Red Bull, and Oscar just went sort of with a wry smile, "No, it's not. Red Bull's not the fastest car. The McLaren's the fastest car. Lando's wrong." Exact words were, "Lando's wrong." So he put his teammate down, straightened him out in the back line very quickly.
I think this is the thing already. Like as we've said before, Lando doesn't necessarily handle pressure well. Now you've got to take this with a very, very large handful of salt, because it is coming out of a publication from the Netherlands that are sort of famous for some fairly crazy statements regarding Formula One. But apparently, one of the papers over there are reporting that Lando has basically put himself on a very strict no party, no booze, no carrying on sort of diet right now, because he's saying that like he really he's already concerned that perhaps if he keeps going like this, if he keeps making mistakes, and if he keeps sort of falling back too far behind Oscar, eventually it's inevitable that at some stage McLaren are going to have to turn around, whether they like it or not, and say, "Hey Lando, Oscar is our best chance of winning this championship, and you now have to play second fiddle to him, whether you like it or not," as they basically did with Oscar.
There's a publication.
Oscar's won 3 of the last 4 races. I mean, there's nothing more obvious than that as a statement. as to who the number one driver at McLaren is?
It's not a publication, but it is a very well represented and populated in numbers online social media outlet that's saying that Max is already in the talks. He's had one set of talks with him, and he's in a second set that's planned for a certain date with Aston Martin to leave by the end of the year too, with an option of another team. So until a major one comes out with it, there's lots of rumours going around every week, I suppose.
Yeah, you've got to be careful. I mean, the problem is you've got a news cycle now, and this is the problem with all news. And people need to understand this. Right now there's a massive news vacuum. I mean, you've got all of these 24-hour a day, news outlets, and that includes sporting ones. That includes things like Sky FM and Speed Cafe and all the ones. And it's like, we've got to get content out. What's happened today? Well, nothing's happened today. We've got to get content out. Well, nothing's happened. Well, make something up. Oh, okay.
Clickbait.
Yeah, so it's like, let's exaggerate something wildly, like Lando and Oscar at war, and it's like, no, they're not. It's like not at least not yet, anyway. But it's like,
I was talking to a gnome under a tree, and he said,
yeah, it's like sources close. Yeah, sources close too, or friends and relations, and that sort of thing.
In a rumor I just made up.
Industry insiders. Yeah, so they're the sort of things that you see when you see sort of industry. But the problem is, I mean, there are industry insiders, there are people. I tend not to quote you because we do get them. I mean, not so much now, but certainly sort of when In Pit Lane was on 31, and back in the days when like we were before digital times. When we were one of only sort of 5 stations, and we had sort of 60,000-70,000 people a week watching the show. I got a lot of stuff fed to me from various supercar teams, which I never run. Most of it, a lot of it turned out to be true, not all of it, probably about 60, 65, 70% turned out to be true. I wouldn't run it because it was like, can I quote you? No, you definitely can't. Okay, well, in that case, I'm not running it. But other people...
You had basically a 50-50 chance of getting it right, and you wouldn't want to take that risk if you were wrong.
Well, that's the problem. You can't go back and you can't you can never reveal a source. And if you go back and sort of, suddenly it doesn't come true and people say, oh, you made that up. You can't sort of say, well, no, I didn't. Joe Bloggs told me, and he's the head of the... shit. Sorry, yeah. Joe. Good. I'll see you at Centrelink.
That's all right. I got straight after a Grand Prix last year, the year before. Exclusive pictures, Verstappen or somebody falls over and breaks leg. Clicked on it, of course, and my screen froze. So that'll teach me.
Yeah, well, that's the problem that's the problem you've got is that like the
is that what happened to Jorge Martin?
And they'll grab stuff because that it's going to get huge. It's funny because because of things like AI, ChatGPT, and all the rest of it. I'm sort of been playing around with it a lot, but you sort of I put something in and said hey, here's what we're going to talk about on Full Course Yellow this week. Can you put together something that will get us more views? And what it generates out the other end is absolutely zero related to the facts. It's like, Max Verstappen's career is over. Right there, and Lando Norris is, living on the streets and begging, giving $5 hand jobs in order to keep his career alive. It's like, no, I don't think so.
Okay, you've been watching too many of those YouTube videos, I think, where the AI generated talk goes over the top. And,
I mean, just the thought of Lando giving $5, he'd charge at least £20. I mean, come on.
I was going to say, that's cheap then, Turak. Jesus.
I don't know where you go, Brad.
What suburb are you in? Christ. Brighton or Turak, they're more than double. Anyway, no, I'm only joking.
I was going to say that cheap and Turak are words that never occur in the same sentence.
Oh, I don't know. I've met a few. I've met some cheap people in Toorak. That's for there's lots of cheap people in Toorak.
I tell you what, getting right off the subject only because it's relevant at the moment, but a particular Liberal candidate was found out. They hit her up on the spot at a press conference on the last day or two, and she said that she was renting and knew how hard the cost of
Yes.
living was. But you saw this too, did you? She failed to mention that she has two properties. One she owns in Canberra, one that she owns in another part of Australia that's quite affluent.
No, it's not
And
another part of Australia. One she owns in London.
sorry, London. Yeah, that's right. London and Canberra, and then she also failed to disclose that she got a $20 million general trustee payout from the family as well too. Oh, Miss.
Yes,
Let's
I'm
just
just a
say,
battler, just like you people.
just
Anyway,
Amelia can be.
let's get back. Let's get back onto motorsport. Apart from that, for the weekend, I didn't see a lot because of the time thing factor. I didn't watch it live. I basically watched the highlights the next morning because, as I said, there was so much else on. I caught up with as much of the WEC as I could. I must say, if you don't have Stan or you don't pay for the FIA WEC app, and I didn't this time around because I had so much else on and so many things I had to do. I thought, I'm not going to pay them. I'm not going to pay the $12 or whatever it is to watch him because I might not be able to see it out. And just as well I didn't. But you can, whenever there's an FIA WEC round on, you can get really, really good coverage because they don't stream the races live, but they do stream multiple in-car cameras live on YouTube. And if you go to that and look at some of those and flick around between a few of them and then run the Radio Le Mans radio commentary in the background and the timing, you get a really, really good, it's a really good coverage. You miss out on a few, but it's better than just listening to it. You get some fabulous in-car footage. Some of the stuff that was coming out of the Mustang, the GT3 Mustang, was fantastic and very scary at times too.
I was busy.
I'm just
The
gonna do some
GT3s were so busy.
Yeah.
Just going to do some housekeeping quickly, which Brett was obviously had his microphone years and boxed around that sort of stuff. Evenings, box. Hello, Mark, Jared. Thanks for jumping on board tonight. And a big shout out to Jimmy K as well, though, too. Thanks, guys, for joining us and everyone else, guys.
Oh, it looks like we lost. Yeah, in putting the quotes up on screen, it knocked Brett off.
Maybe it gives him the opportunity, like I said, to shut his screen off for a minute and grab his earphones and stop that Captain Caveman stuff as well, though, too. Did you watch the race, Jonesy? Any of the races, like we were about to jump onto, any of the 6 hour or the...
there were several 6 hours on the weekend, and Creventic actually had tried to 12 hour. There were no less than 4 6-hour races over the course of the weekend. Creventic had 2 of them at Spa-Francorchamps on their 24H series with an overnight break in between them.
No, wasn't it a 5 and a 7, not 2 6s?
Well, yeah, it's 5 and a 7. Average it to see. I mean, it's the joke.
What the dog?
Nice try. Guess how good mate Johnny Hindy was on there, and he shaved his hair off. And just get right off the subject for a second. Old Hindy said, I think I was watching the end of the second one, the 7 hour one. He said, geez, I shouldn't have shaved that hair off. It doesn't go. It's a bit cold here when it rains with the no feathers on top. So old Hindy said, but yeah, he did a good job. I liked his podium presentation. He gave it some fun and some colour, a bit like Brett and I would do, and if we were actually handing out some trophies and a bit of fun. But anyway, do your roundup, Jonesy, MJ.
Well, yeah, in the WEC, of course, the 6 hours of Imola, and we saw the evidence that even with that Imola can get a little bit congested. It may be, I mean, it's one of the larger Italian circuits, but it may be slightly on the small side for WEC because the Ferraris very obviously had the pace in their home event, and they were looking to qualify 1, 2, 3, and in the end it was 1, 2, 18 because the number 50 car was had problems keeping the car between the straight lines. They had track limits each and every time they put down a lap, and the number 50 car ended up the car that was driven in qualifying by Fuoco. Was it Fuoco or was it Nielsen? Anyway, whichever one it was, he ended up being last, not having set the time. So he started from 18th on the grid, and he was never. And despite the Ferraris having a pace advantage over every other car in the race, was not able to get back into he climbed into the top 10 at various points throughout the race, but it wasn't enough. And in the end, they were classified 15th. Down among, well, not quite as down as far as the Aston Valkyries, who were last and second last again, and so they're 4 laps down the Valkyries in the European Series, where the Valkyries in the US are actually almost competitive. So there's something not quite matching right there. Although I suppose, considering the Porsches are dominant in the US and they're not, and they're in the only in the points at WEC, it could perhaps be that the cars that have been built to WEC regs rather than IMSA regs have a bit of an advantage of their own. The 4 of the 9 cars in top class of sports car racing are built to WEC. The other 5 are IMSA cars. The Ferrari, Toyota, Alpine, and Aston Martin are the WEC cars. No, not Alpine, Peugeot. Yeah, Alpine, of course, very definitely. I'm getting off track. Ferrari won. BMW was second, and it was actually reasonably close. The BMWs are very good on the pace this year in the World Endurance Championship, and they do seem to have displaced Porsche in the rankings of the top German manufacturer in WEC. And Sheldon van der Linde and Robin Franz Renault Rast went within. It was less than 10 seconds between them and the winning Ferrari of James Calado, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Alessandro Paguidi. With Alpine with third, so continuing to show that at least one of the French teams is on the money. Heading into Le Mans next month. Oh my goodness, Le Mans is almost here, and we're also within a month of Indianapolis 500. But that's a whole.
I think you've just hit the finish line there at the WEC, there, Mr. Jones. I've got
GT3s. Porsche won
hang on.
GT3s over BMW, and Lexus were third. So
I sent Brett a grab over. Had my Belgium eyes on. Did you guys check out that beautiful new 992 RS, the prototype that they ran? And it was I think they called it in the evil colour scheme they went with. I saw the interview with Ralph Bowen before he fired it up after he'd just done his sighting lap and parked it. And he was, for a German, he was pretty excited. As much as a German person can get pretty excited about driving a Porsche. But did you guys check that out? It looked really good. It was leading at one stage.
I did see the run under the SP4 class. As one of the things about the Creventic rule set is they do have the Nürburgring Langstrecke classes on their books, but they don't use them. But in this instance, they were able to stick the prototype next, the 992.2 into the SP4 regs, and the car was very effective right up at the pointy end, even though it's not completely signed off.
It's not homologated, no.
So yeah, there's still the opportunity for Porsche to tweak the aero a bit.
Brett, you're on mute.
Why no Porsche set the 6 hour? Well, Mark Russell, if you mean by that the Bathurst 6 hour, no Porsches are eligible for the Bathurst 6 hour. The closest you could get, in theory, maybe a Porsche Panamera might be eligible, but I don't think so. I think it's too far out the top end as far as there is a purchase price thing at the top.
Screen and thing. What did you watch anything, Brett? Richard?
Yeah, watch
Richard?
most of it on scroll through a bit, but yeah, it's a good race. There's no major dramas other than the Crick family coming from last to first. That was amazing, and setting the fastest record on the last lap. Wow,
Kind
that
of
was
had to.
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Kind
Peter
of had
Brock.
to
That's
with,
Peter
with
Brock territory, isn't it?
well,
Oh,
Juso
Brett's back.
Jada.
Awesome. We can hear you again, mate. Good. You're back, buddy.
Juso
Yeah.
Jada broke the lap record on that last lap of the race as well. So
As
Crick
well,
had
yes.
to do the lap
Hell.
record to stay in front. So
Crazy.
it was sensational. One lap.
I think
Oh,
from,
Oh,
I
it
think
was
from
incredible.
memory,
Tell you.
maximum price.
Incredible.
The maximum price is at what, about 140 or 150? I know they put it up just recently, in terms of
It's
the
under
Bathurst.
200, and that's all I could tell you.
Yeah, I know they put it up just recently, but I think it's more that it is. I think it is basically, for sedans. I think that's, the production sedans. I think that's part of the situation, that it is probably a Porsche or a Corvette or a Ferrari, one of those sorts of cars wouldn't be eligible, even if it
Well,
fit under
Camaros and Mustangs aren't really sedans, but yeah, they're
Yeah, but they sort of, well, they sort of are. I mean, they're two-door, they're front
They're a
engine,
tin
rear-wheel
top.
drive.
I just don't
So,
think. Yeah, I don't think a Porsche would be a competitive option in
Not
that
the cheap
under that
ones.
price tag. Yeah, plenty of Porsches would be competitive options, but
the
not. But they'd
Mustang,
be over the price tag.
the
Was
third
there any
place for the
MG?
Mustang, for the Seaton Mustang, was very impressive.
I didn't watch a hell of a
Yeah.
lot of it. I only saw bits and pieces. Was there any MGs in it, guys?
No.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Not even in the Group N/Group S race. There were no MGs anywhere in the entry list.
I can't recall seeing, because I would have probably pricked up my ears of it, because they're almost all front wheel drive, aren't they?
The new
Well,
one.
actually, that leads to the new TCR announcement today as well, too, about cutting the Perth round and back to 4.
Well,
Wow.
that was always insane. I mean, first of all, New Zealand was an insane thing to try and pull off. The Perth round was a ridiculous thing to try and pull off, and they're still trying to pull off the Macau round as part of the World Tour by taking the cars over there. I don't know where the hell they're finding all of this money, because there's nowhere. They don't seem to have a sponsor, a major sponsor. They don't seem to have major television. I don't know where this money's supposed to be coming to get a whole bunch of people. If they can't afford to go to Taupo and they can't afford to go to Perth, how the hell are they going to afford to get to Macau? Because Macau is a long, long way away, and it's very. I think they're basically going to try and, I think probably when the World Tour comes over to the Bend, they're probably going to, the Macau organisers or the World Tour
Tap into 'em.
organisers are probably going to send over a couple
Splitting
of
the transport costs. Yeah.
yeah, send over a couple of empty shipping containers and say, here, make them fit. But how
Put 'em on green plate.
how many cars they get over there, I've got no idea, but it would cost a fortune. Speaking of which, I want to move on to the Bathurst 12 Hour, because that's a race that we really love, and it's been very popular. Tony Grover's come out today and suggested that there should be some changes, and I think they're fairly sensible. By basically simplify the whole thing, but also make it a GT3 only event, because as he said, you've got a very, very tiny handful of invitational cars. Virtually none of the GT4 people are interested. And I thought, yeah, it's okay, but I mean, you've still got that problem. It's a really crowded calendar. There's so many other major races for GT3 cars in the world. I want to throw this one up. Bathurst 12 Hour, exclusively not for GT3, but for GT4.
Well, funny you mention that. I'll throw it out a little bit further, which is some of the comments that come up. If you're not going to do the GT4s and keep it as a GT3 race, 12 hour, a suggestion was made, so I can't take credit for this one, but I thought it was a good idea. Have a 6 hour or a smaller race of some size of the GT4s on the Saturday, and that spreads the weekend out and keeps the interest there.
Well, that was originally going to be the plan for the Bathurst International. It was going to be a 6 hour GT4 race. We spoke to, I think it was Carl Begg down at Phillip Island a couple of years ago, and that's what he said for, for the plan was. Because the problem is, I mean, if you talk to all the GT4 is like it's a more affordable in inverted commas. It's still bloody expensive. The cars are still very expensive, but it's way more affordable than sort of up to date GT3s. And the thing is, with so many of these other GT3 races around the world, wouldn't you think if you made it exclusively for GT4 that there would be GT4 competitors in the European series, in the American series, in Asia, all over the place that has GT4 would go, oh wow, Bathurst, that's on our bucket list. And it's just for GT4. We don't have to share the billing, with GT3 cars. And
You reckon
look in
too
our
many
mirror
GT3 teams have won Bathurst and they just don't want to come and do it anymore because they've already won it,
We've
and
already won
therefore
it,
the GT4s haven't.
and they're all, most of them are, rich businessmen. So at that time of the year, they might say, well, let's go down and spend summer down under, and catch perhaps a couple of test matches, and then pop up to the mountain for a bit of a 12-hour jaunt, eh?
South Africa this year.
Can I quote something that Geordie said to me when he was up at the Bathurst Challenge? He was clearly getting ready for one of the support races for the 12-hour.
This year with the Lamborghini.
And I asked him how all going, and I said, "Are you doing the 12-hour?" He said, "No." I said, "It's too expensive with the GT3." I said, "Oh, can you? Yeah, is it cheaper to go GT4?" And he goes, "No, that's cost me even more money." And I was like, "Wow, really?" Because that's all out of my league, but. That's what I'm quoting him as saying. It was going to cost him more to go GT4 than GT3. So
I'm curious to know what the saving would be for a race team to do the 12-hour in GT4 versus GT3. I mean, okay, the purchase price of the cars is different, obviously, but you've already got the car. So what's the difference? What's the cost saving in running the race in a GT3 versus a GT4? I think
it's also the fact that with GT3 and being part of the Intercontinental Championship, I'd love to see it stay GT3. I'd prefer GT as a spectacle. I'd much prefer to see it as GT3 with all of those major international teams and all the rest of it. But talking to some of the guys this year who you had come across, people like Craft Bamboo and those sort of people, who just said, and even Team WRT, who said, "Oh, this is probably our last year. It's a long way to come. It's a logistical nightmare. Long way to come, and we have so many other things, so many other races, so many other series that we can do. We wanted to race it because that's what Valentino said. He was more or less saying, if WRT don't come back to Bathurst, somehow I will, because he definitely wants to come back.
He wants to win it, that's why.
Yeah, well, I mean, he just loves the place.
He's got a great fan base here.
He does. He loves having his birthday here every year.
So, well, he didn't this year, of course, but that's the thing. You've got to find a date for the bloody thing, and it's right close to Daytona.
2 weeks of the next race in... 2 weeks of the next race in Europe?
1 week.
That's 1 week in the next race in Europe, yeah.
Well, Asia, you've got at the moment, the way it was at the moment, you had the Daytona 24-hour. Then the next week you had the Bathurst 12-hour. The week after that you had an Asian Le Mans series. The following week another Asian Le Mans series, and then a couple of weeks after that you had the prologue for the World Endurance Championship, and then the opening round of the World Endurance Championship, all happening within a space of about 6 weeks. Some of those GT3 teams, like WRT and all the rest, are involved in most of those series. Bathurst doesn't sort of fit in really in terms of it's a major there. Peter has joined us, but not on camera. G'day, Pete. So good to know you're watching. We'll catch up. Hope you're okay and everything. Everything's going well. But anyway,
just a quick one.
I suppose one of the advantages of having of going to a GT4 for the 12-hour is that none of the overseas GT4 series, other than the IMSA one, have started yet. At the time of So, but by the same token,
it'd be the blue ribbon event for GT4s. Imagine around the world to say, okay, we are going. This is going to be it's the de facto world champion. It's their Le Mans 24 hour. It's their Nürburgring or Spa 24 hour. This is it's just it's and even if you went as far as saying it's just a pro-am class for GT4 drivers, you'd have to think that a lot of the Australian teams would get in because we've got big numbers there now, and that's the problem with GT3. None of the Australian teams enter the 12 hour basically. You get one, two or three that actually get on board, and the rest, are not in, just not into it.
Oh,
They
it's
don't
a
have
few
the
more than
money. They
that.
don't. They don't have the money. They're and the fields aren't that big anyway. I mean, at the GT
Well, yeah,
three level,
that's the problem of running it as a GT3 race and then saying no more inviteds or GT4s,
yeah,
because that's taking a potentially, like, say, I'm just inventing these numbers off the top of my head, but that's taking a 25 car grid to a 20 car grid, and that's a noticeable drop,
yeah,
particularly on a circuit the size of Bathurst, and that
yeah.
would be a significant reduction in spectacle of the race.
Yeah, I just think I don't know what they're going to do because it's like finding another time slot for it. I mean, everyone's saying, "Oh, move it
There isn't
to
really.
such a like when." I mean, like
Yeah.
move it to November. Move it to. You're not going to move it to December. Too close to Christmas in. There, you could put it in November, but then it's close, of course. Do you have it after Macau? I mean, you've got the GT3 World Cup happening at Macau. Do you have it sort of 2 weeks after Macau and hope those cars would come and those teams and drivers would come down for
The only
Bathurst?
option would be to go earlier in the year rather than to go later, but in doing so, you've then got racing in Australia in January.
Yeah, and
Hot.
that's the other thing too. I mean, it was hot enough there this year. I mean, it was sort of on the Saturday it got to about 35, 36. Sunday was not as hot, but it was very, very humid up there. And yeah, that's the problem. And then of course you get problems around the local area with bushfires and all the rest of it. It's really hard to find a time that's suitable, and it's been such a fantastic event. I'd really hate to see it. Really hate to see it suffer, but next year
Dwindle.
we know for a fact next year there will be Mustangs there at least. If that's there wasn't this year, and I'd be very surprised if there wasn't at least one team running some Corvettes. So that's going to add a bit of extra colour to it. But
Hype to it, yeah.
yeah, I mean it's very. Is there something they can do in conjunction with the Asian Le Mans series? I mean, we've had Could they bring the Asian Le Mans series out to the Bend again and run have that the week before? No, but then it runs up against
Yeah,
Daytona.
the Asia Le Mans series moved to the Middle East.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
They have
Yeah.
around, like, during COVID, it moved to the Middle East, and like they now have one round in East Asia, but that's it. The championship is relocated, and that seems like a permanent move.
Yeah, well,
So
everybody likes it that way because like the European teams because it's all very
you could, in theory, drive your truck to the middle. I mean, you wouldn't, but you
yeah.
could.
Yeah,
You'd have
like
to
you go
drive
over there.
through Ukraine, wouldn't you?
They've got four.
Oh, Turkey,
They've got
Turkey and
four
Greece.
races in a row over 2 weekends, so it's nice and condensed. And of
Yeah.
course, if you win the Asian Le Mans series after those, it's 5 races because there's that round in Malaysia as well at the sort of the rogues, the remaining Asian race.
The returning Asian race, because they hadn't had one
Well, they hadn't
in
had
the
one
last
for
couple of
a
years.
while, yeah, and
So
so.
yeah, since
And
COVID, basically.
I
So
thought
yeah.
that when they announced that they were going to bring back
Sepang,
Sepang,
wasn't it? Yeah.
I thought that well that would make sense for now. They could okay, well, COVID's over. Perhaps have the last weekend, the last 2 races, or even the last 4 races in in the Middle East, but let's start off in Asia. Let's go down through, start off in China, or like Shenzhen or something. Come on down through to Malaysia. Perhaps come to the Bend, and then from the Bend go to the Middle East, or do it the other way around. But they didn't. They just basically said, no, we'll have one race, and I think that they probably ran that race, or they're running that race for FIA reasons. I think it's so they say, hang on, you can't have an Asian Le Mans series that's recognised by the FIA if you don't have a race in Asia. So they said, okay, we've got a race in Asia now. We have one race in Asia, and we have 4 races in the Middle East.
I don't think it's much. Anyway, Brett put a post up, which I'd already seen and started watching, of the UK Carnicross over there. Didn't it look good with some of those cars going across the dirt section and getting some airtime over the little jump there? Looked like fantastic, and I had a good watch of that. Also, Brett, as Brett knows, he hasn't pieced anything together, but they let me loose on the Pakenham Auto Club McGregor Road Good Friday Appeal fundraising charity day and rides over at Pakenham over there, and it was a great day. I was pleasantly surprised on the turnout, and the organisation of it was fantastic. I haven't been able to touch base with Brett on this, so it's a bit of an explanation in itself to everybody. But one of the organisers there, a lovely lady by the name of Sharon, goes way back and went to school with Luke, one of our good friends at RMI TV. So I've got to catch up with Luke and give him a blast of the past. Sharon's a big fan of Luke's, and also she's done a lot of media. Was absolutely thrilled to bits after I'd settled in there, and I was quietly trying to mind my own business and go about some stuff. Walked up and just stood beside me and introduced herself to me, and just quietly put a ride wristband in my hand and said, "This is for you. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the promo on Full Course Yellow, which we did 2 weeks ago on this show, and a massive appreciate. Yeah, really, really rapt to have you here. And what would you like to do?" So they threw me a high vis. I went out in the track and basically got Clark, of course, let me go wherever I want to a certain extent as usual. I only spent about 3 hours there. And as I walked off, I caught up with Declan, a good friend of Brett, on the mechanical side of life. And he had a quick chat with him, or probably a bit more than a quick chat. And they were fantastic. The catering was crazy. They over catered for it, and it still went well over and above the numbers and expectations. I did not see the lineup at the table to get a ride on any of the cars any slow down for the whole 2-3 hours of there, and to the point where when I walked back, I had the wristband in my pocket. And as I was going back to the main area, I just saw a lady and a man, a couple there with their 2 kids. And they were just lining up and asking questions about the Pakenham Auto Club and the rides and stuff like that. And I just, as I was walking past, I said, "Are any of you kids going for a ride?" And they said, "Yeah, we are. We're just waiting for our friends of the family just have rocked up in the car park, and one of them's coming for a ride as well too." And I just grabbed the wristband in my pocket and handed it to the kid and said, "Have fun." And they were really pleasantly surprised in that they still had to sign their life away on the waivers and stuff like that. Still had to complete the paperwork. But a great day out there, great course, a lot of fun, bit warm, but a fantastic day. So huge. And as Brett alludes to, the junior program is over and above, and they are going to do more of these days and go bigger and higher, and also do it within the community spirit by getting in touch with police, fire brigade, SES, and lots of other businesses, and a huge appreciation.
Yeah, they do a great job. They've always done a really good job out at Pakenham for that, so particularly with the junior stuff. They're famous for it, and they really do embrace community, and it's very much focused on grassroots motorsport. So it's good to see that it was a success, and good to see they've obviously raised some good money for the Royal Children's Hospital appeal, and they also that everybody had fun. And who knows, some of those kids who went for a ride might be going home and saying, Dad, please, could I go back and, they said I could drive one, please."
Well, I won't go into too much detail, but Brett, you've hit the nail right on the head there. A particular admin person, one of the administrators there, was extremely proud mum because she said that about some of the age of the kids that were coming up to do some of the rides, her daughter was interested. They went along to one of these sorts of days and have been involved with the club ever since, and that she was very unfortunate and was dirty that she couldn't be there on Good Friday to participate in the day and the fundraising, the activities, and a lot of fun, and maybe do some clerk of course, or maybe do some marshalling because she's was up at the 6 hour
At
as a
Bathurst,
mechanic and
yeah.
working on the tools. So yeah, I think her
Fantastic.
name was Jess. Congratulations to Jess.
Awesome
She's a
stuff.
regular with one of the teams up there. So good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. Now let's quickly, before we go, Doc, have we got any two-wheel news that we need to know about?
Jorge Martin's still spending it. Still likes his stint in the hospital. He must like smell like that food, the kitchen food without the salt. So no real news on that this week. Other than the beautiful winter edition that's just been released this week of the Ducati Winter Edition Panigale V4. It's right behind me. I thought I'd do a quick screenshot of that. It's I had a description. It was called
Red.
Yummy. Yeah, but I might have to put on my bucket list of to buy in the next 20 years some stage.
Oh,
Now, speaking of which, so Mark, anything coming up at your end of the woods over the weekend or in the next that you want to plug?
well, I forgot to research that in the run up to the show. My bad. We do have Morgan Park coming up reasonably soon. The camp. There we go. Yeah, marks on other marks all over it. The We do have the annual visit for the Motorsport Australia Queensland Championships are about to visit Queensland Raceway. They do one round a year and at QR, and as well as doing the bulk of their racing at Morgan Park. Um, so we've got that. That's a couple of weeks away. Yeah,
There
I'm
was
just waffling.
one.
So
Well,
I've got
no,
waffle.
I've got a non-waffle event. Brett, I think Mr. Jones, you might have seen it. Brett, you might have even liked it too. Jeremy did it. A couple of other people have shared it as well too. Car enthusiast, not already a member of the BMW Clubs Australia Car Club, join us at
Oh,
Calder
yeah.
Park Raceway on Saturday, the 26th of April, from 9:30 a.m. celebrating 50 years of the 3 Series. So. I think it is completely 60 cars are going to be on the national circuit. I don't think you can enter any more. So, but what they're saying is, please, everyone and anyone is welcome. Come out, have some fun, enjoy the scenery, maybe participate in some way or shape or form. You
Yeah,
can't race,
there's not
but
a
it
lot
is
of there's not a
admission
lot of
is.
scenery to enjoy out at Calder Park. Let's be honest, but
However, admission is free, so whatever
it
you
is
do
free.
get to see is going to cost you nothing other than the fuel to get there.
Yeah, so it might be a
Royce
good it might be a
Lyons
good day out.
Royce
Yeah.
Lynn's BMW 3 Series is going to need a little bit of repairs before they can take that out to that meeting celebrating the 3 Series. It's must
So
say that's the first time I'd ever seen a car spinning on its door handle
yes, that was yeah
in the
that
improved production at Bathurst
at
a
Bathurst,
weekend
yeah, and
just gone.
he got quite a mauling over that one from a few people because there was no shortage. You can't say that how anybody could say didn't see the yellow flag. There were yellow flags everywhere. It was very quick work, very impressive quick work by the marshals there. They had those yellow flags out within a second, and there was a bit of criticism coming his way about really with all of those yellow flags, you should have. You should have taken. There should have been a lot more caution, and you shouldn't have been basically going that quick that you could get into that position. But thankfully, I mean, sort of no injury to him, and probably not a huge amount of damage. It looked spectacular, but probably not a massive amount of damage to the car under the circumstances. But yeah, looked very spectacular. memories of the start line chaos at the sports sedan race at Adelaide International Raceway all those years ago.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
which
At the
probably
time, it
sets.
was
That
well.
was
At
basically
the time, it was
destroyed
like
sports sedans from a decade or more.
well,
That
there
Yeah,
was
was,
that.
it was
Yeah.
it was thought at the time that that was the most expensive accident that in the history of Australian motorsport.
Well, as
yeah, it
Richard
was.
saying, the sports sedan, that category, I mean, it really was the end of the national series for quite some time in terms of like all the big names because you had so many cars taken out, and that
Of
was
course,
sort of
at
the
the
end
time,
of
it was that was also the era when the sports sedan series was merged with GTs.
GTs. Speaking of merging with GTs, I saw a message today for the next round of the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship. I think it's down at Phillip Island. And Richard, you were talking about sort of the numbers and all the rest of it. I was really surprised. They at this stage I think they're mixing sports sedans, sports cars, and possibly improved production into one race.
And with excels,
I didn't
with
see the Excel.
possibly.
Possibly, so there's still a but I don't think they were listed. It was there were certainly categories there that are normally there that you didn't see. But I was surprised. Sports sedans haven't had huge fields for a while, but improved productions had very good fields usually. The sports cars, I think they have to if they're going to run sports cars at all. I think they really should just run them with the sports sedans. But then the sports car guys get the huff and say, well, if we've got to share the track with these backyards, we're not going to race. So because if you have a look at the lap times, the top sports cars at that level and the top sports sedans at that level are running very, very similar lap times, and they, between like the 6 or 7 sports cars that are there, add them to the sort of 10 or 12 sports sedans, and it turns into a pretty good field, and it certainly looks good
I'm
from
healthy.
it looks good from from a photo perspective, of photo opportunities to get a whole bunch of sports sedans along with some Porsches and some Audis and
Yeah, a
a
lot of
Lamborghini
Carrera
or
Cup
something.
cars. Yeah,
Might even be able to get some longer lap time, a longer time allocation or extra laps if they put them all together as well, too, if they can merge the time frames. What about you, Mr. Richard C.H. Outram, the Formula Red C.H.
What was hinted on the Facebook page was that come to the state round and enter your Excel in improved production, which some guys already do. But yeah, and it wasn't suggested like there was at this stage there was an actual grid for Excels by themselves.
The fact that
How's
they're
your
putting out there,
improved
I mean,
production?
you'd have to think that the speed differential, even with the top improved production cars, I mean, the best of the improved production cars are running sports sedan pace. I mean, if you look at like the cars that are at the top of the field, they're running very, very fast indeed, and to have sort of like a whole bunch of Excels
Like Danny and John, a couple of people
Yeah,
have had on the show, Danny
but
Timewell,
as
and
most of them are fairly experienced and keep a good eye out.
anyway,
Yeah, I
Richard,
think
you didn't answer. How's your improved production going?
Just waiting on a motor.
Still,
I've got plenty of motors lying around, but they're all granny motors.
okay.
With the last time they were used were picking Granny's groceries up, or little Johnny from kindergarten. So I'm
Okay.
still waiting for a motor to arrive, all shiny new and looking like a WEG cartoon. Huge trumpets and flames coming out of it. Yeah, you can dream. You can dream.
I do have the dates confirmed. The next event up here in Queensland of note is actually Australian Superbike Championship on May. That's the long weekend in May to the 2nd to the 4th, so 2 weeks away.
So that'll be on
Election weekend.
SBS. So So remember, early voting did open today. So vote early, vote often.
Yes.
Please, yeah. Vote. They reckon. Anyway, yeah, we've got the election on the 3rd, and you've
Vote
also
for
got
as many people as you can. They all need encouragement.
They all need to
Except
go. Yes,
Clive
spread it
Palmer.
around, spread the love around.
Giving me work, a bit
Okay,
less work for me to do.
that's hey, look, that's the hour up, everyone. I think we'll call it quits there. Now next week, not 100% sure whether we'll be back next week. I've got some important medical stuff on Tuesday. Might probably won't be out, or if I am, I may not be in a mood to be jumping in front of a camera and talking about cars going around in circles. So we'll see how we feel. I just don't want to set up or promise anything that I can't deliver on that day. So we might not be on next week. We'll have to talk about that later on in the week. But as I said, I've got some pretty important stuff that I've got to go through on Tuesday, unfortunately. So anyway, let's round up there. Thank you everybody for watching once again. Good to catch up with everybody. If you're watching just in Melbourne, of course, remember that this Friday, our band this Friday on the tune-up at 8 o'clock on Channel 31, Black Dime Cabaret. They are an amazing band. This is a band that is sort of very heavily influenced by Pink Floyd, by Weather Report, by Blue Oyster Cult. They still do. They do concept albums, and they are amazing. They're an extraordinary. They've toured all over the world, and somehow we managed to track them down to a week where they didn't have a gig somewhere in Australia or overseas, and they said, yes, we'll come in and we'll play a few of our songs for you. So that's coming up this Friday night at 8 o'clock on the tune-up. Now remember, if you're outside of Melbourne, you can watch the show. In fact, all Channel 31 shows and Channel 44 Adelaide shows, you can watch them live on CTV Plus.
Yes,
CTV
I got
Plus,
a surprise last week when I sent that to you, Brett. Completely out of the blue, I saw a promo for it in my feed and went, I'll have a look at that. And I went, oh my God, geez, that hurt.
I don't know why they ran a couple of photos of us rather than a band or something. I don't think anybody's going to tune in to see
I
that.
saw that. Yeah.
Shocking, awful.
But anyway,
Yes.
but it is there. And by the way, if you
Like
missed
new
any
tricks.
episodes of In Pit Lane last year, they've actually put all of last year's In Pit Lane episodes
They
up on
did
CTV
too. I had a
Plus
look at that
as
after
well,
you
which,
mentioned that. At least I
which
was wearing
didn't
my
know.
Pink Floyd T-shirt at the time. At least
Well,
that was.
that's good.
Look
Okay, and
like-
yes, so keep up. That's every Friday night at 8 o'clock on Channel 31 Melbourne, and of course on CTV Plus. You can watch on demand. It's available for iOS and YouTube. Unfortunately, as I said, no smart TV app as yet. They're working on that. It's surprisingly, it is very, very, very expensive to develop one of these apps, and they've been working at this for a long, long time just to get the two.
And
that
to
are up
cut it
there
off
already.
a little bit, Brett, you didn't do enough of this. Also, last week's show, I hate to go retrospective on you, but Brett jumped down a couple of weeks ago to the Mr. Boogeyman bar where we spent a lot of time during breaks on COVID and catching up with live bands there. And a big shout out to the crew that joined us in different ways, like Chris Ritchie and Stuart and a few of the other gang. Jason was a regular, and I used to hang around the ceiling on ladders and all sorts of milk crates and that, hooking up wiring and having a lot of fun there.
Yeah.
And all safety culture stuff. I was just showing everyone how you don't do things, but it came out shining and we had a lot of fun. But yeah, Brett went to the Mr. Boogeyman bar a couple of weeks ago and did a great interview with Jax, and she's the manager there / owner. Took it over back, I think in 2019. She bought it completely out just a few months before COVID, unfortunately. But they do a fantastic few gigs down there, and we've had a lot of fun there at different times, and pizzas and drinks.
Good venue, and really easy to get to too. It's right next to the Collingwood railway station. So if you don't want to drive, I was there. Just jump on a train out of the city to the Collingwood railway station. I think it's basically 2 stops out of Melbourne, and just get off and walk around the corner, and it's there. So it's really
You
good
just
night
reminded
out.
myself that the band that we had on last week were the Jasper Hill. They are launching their new EP on the 23rd of May. They're doing a soft launch on the 19th of May But the launch is on the Friday night on the 23rd of May at Pockets and Moorabbin. I am going to go there because I thought they were absolutely incredible that night.
They were very good, and in fact, Pockets is one of the venues. I mean, we were doing I wanted to do a series of. That was the idea of doing the Boogeyman Bar, of doing a series of venues in Melbourne. Now, unfortunately, for a whole bunch of reasons, including my current health situation, I haven't been able to get out. But also, like in motorsport, insurance is just killing it. There's a few places I've contacted and said we'd love to come round and film. They've said, yeah, not a problem. We do. Where's your public liability? We need $20 million public liability insurance. And it's like, in that case, forget about it. So, you know.
Can't just sit there with a can of soda, squash in your hand, and have a chat about things. Unfortunately, these days.
Yes, so they're making it very, very, very difficult. I noticed in New South Wales, somebody on one of the filmmaking. This is totally off topic, but one of the filmmaking groups basically said that I think it's the University of Newcastle have now told their media students, you are not to shoot anything outside of the campus area because if you're out in the public and something happens, the university won't cover you. You're in big trouble. So they basically banned them. It's like, whatever you're shooting, you want to do a student film? Great. It's got to be set at the University of Newcastle because you walk out the front door and something goes wrong, you're on your own and it could cost
no
you
PL, no public liability. All right.
Yeah. Okay,
Gonzo filming has gotten even more gonzo.
Yeah, so we'll see you. We'll see you when we see you.
Okay.
As I said, I'm hoping to have some more stuff up on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. We did manage to get some of the drag boat racing stuff up. Lost a lot of it. Unfortunately, my editing SSD crashed. A replacement one is about $650, and I don't have $650. And if I did, it'd be going to be spent on the car right now. But apart from that, we'll see how we go. Okay, we'll catch you all when we catch you. We'll see you next week. Until then, thanks for joining us, everybody, and bye for now.